get situated, we'll do a little like.
Take a sip off the top of that. Holy crap! Just for when we cheers. Jesus, don't. This is definitely going in there.
Stop it.
No, this is definitely going in. Come on. Come on. It's going
in. No.
No, that's what she said.
Stop.
All right, I think that's enough.
Don't make me spill.
All right, here we go.
Don't make me spill.
I'm sorry. Anyways, welcome back to A Date Night In.
Welcome back. Cheers.
Cheers. How was your week?
Sorry, it's bad luck to not drink.
It really is. I know. I'm sorry.
My week was okay. So it's the new year.
Oh, yeah?
It's officially the new year. It's now 2024.
Really?
Yeah.
That's scary. I mean,
I know.
You know what's funny? Shoot, I wrote 2023 on my paperwork today at work.
Did you really?
I really did, now that I think about it.
That used to happen to me in the new year all the time with my old job. But yeah, no, it's 2024 now. We celebrated the new year.
Sweet.
So we had New Year's Eve off, which was nice.
That must be nice. Oh, wait, I did too.
I say we. I'm talking about you and I, we, silly goose.
I know. I'm just teasing.
So we had New Year's Eve off. Big plans for 2024. So
Okay.
feeling refreshed and excited.
That's good.
Yeah.
I had to work pretty much up until then, so, I'm more drained and tired, so.
Well, yeah, you basically had to work, like 10 days in a row?
9.
9.
But, yeah, you know what? We'll round it up to 10. I like it.
All right.
It sounds more impressive.
And then you
Or more sad, rather. Oh, poor Funky.
And then you got the opportunity to have a day or two off, so that was nice to have.
It was nice.
Home and relaxing.
Oh, my goodness. It was so nice.
Yeah. How was your week, though?
It was good. Work was easy, I can't complain. I love my job. You know that. I love my job. When it comes down to it, I have nightmares about it. Just, I feel like everyone does, right?
Sometimes, but...
No?
How often are you having nightmares about it?
Quite often.
Oh.
Well, really, I say quite often. The more I work, the more nightmares I have. Really, because I have to answer the same 3 questions over and over and over and over again.
Do you have any straws?
There was one time I had a nightmare, all right? And I think I told you this one before. So, I was at the bar and just serving people, and, every time they asked one of those questions, do you have a straw? What is a Miami Vice? And why don't you take Apple Pay? Literally, the person would turn into a zombie. They'd be like, oh, this is great. Do you have a straw? And dude, it freaked me out. I literally woke up in a sweat, and I was like, oh, my God. But somehow it was better than normal. Life. So I was like, you know what? Maybe it's not a nightmare.
I don't know how I feel about that. Okay.
Other than that, I love my job. So
Okay.
It was a good week. It was a great end of the year.
Yeah.
I enjoyed our Christmas together. I enjoyed our New Year's together. We chilled, and it was so nice, you guys. Oh, my goodness. So nice.
Christmas could have been better. I was sick,
Well, she's sick of me is really what she's trying to say.
No. I think the flu. I don't know. I've just been feeling so run down and just can't shake it. I'll get better for a couple of days and then I feel not good again, but it's okay.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's fine. So we, I think, ended last time and decided that our topic this week was going to be Twitch etiquette.
Oh, Lord.
Which is a big topic. So
that is a huge topic, and we're going to need one of these real quick.
So etiquette is, one of the things that is a big cultural component of Twitch. And I think one of the reasons we wanted to bring it up is because it's not well understood or well followed
that's
very
true.
often. So, I think kind of jumping in, it is part of being a viewer and or a streamer on the platform of Twitch. To understand Twitch etiquette, you need to do some research, right? So for me, being a person who didn't watch Twitch streams other than yours and a handful of your people,
being fresh, being green.
Yeah, being fresh and being green, I had a lot to learn as a person who was deciding to start my own stream. Learning very quickly that every stream has a different set of rules. Every streamer has their own kind of culture and way that they run their stream. Every streamer kind of interprets the etiquette a little bit differently. What's serious, what isn't, what's a violation of it, what isn't.
That's another thing is, when we're talking about this subject, just to, I guess to kind of preface everything, I've seen streamers like let's just say self-promotion. There's some streamers who just are like, please do it, and that's great, and it's all great and all, but not every streamer is like that. There's some streamers who like, you're like, oh, I'm going to go start streaming, they're like, really, you're banned.
Right.
Like,
no, so people have taken this concept of etiquette and the components that go within it and just kind of interpret it and applied it to their content in their own way, and it varies. And so that's one of the reasons that it's important to understand what the terms mean, so that you can understand a streamer who interprets it loosely or applies it more seriously, and why, right? And self-promotion is one of the big ones that we'll talk about today. But, I think in general, what we're talking about is Twitch etiquette being manners and behavior. The way you should
behavior.
The way you should conduct yourself as a streamer, the way you should conduct yourself as a viewer in someone's stream.
Yes.
And what that looks like. And it's not as simple as just like the golden rule of kindergarten, like, don't do anything to someone that you wouldn't want them to do to you or whatever.
But also at the same time, I mean, that rule kind of does apply.
It does, but I think it's more complex than that, because if you're a person who's never been a Twitch viewer, there are terms and like vocabulary, essentially, like glossary words that you would need to use. Like there's like almost like a dictionary on the Twitch creator camp that you would have to go and like understand what different things mean, right?
Yeah.
Because we've learned over the years of streaming that not everybody understands when you say don't self-promote. And just to kind of define that, what someone might be doing is popping in and saying, oh, hey, I'm a streamer, please follow me. That's kind of a no-no on Twitch. It's
a huge no-no. I mean, especially if you're new to the channel, right? You can't just pop into someone's stream fresh and say, hey, I'm a streamer, you should go follow me. That's a huge no-no. But like if you're really a part of the community and, let's say you pop in and the creator gives you a shout-out. Right. That kind of gives you a little bit more leeway, at least in some channels, right? Just, like to say, hey, going into lurk mode, it's, time for me to go stream, or hey, I'm tired after stream today, things like that. Like if you raid, you can talk about your stream, right? Like
right. But so like as a viewer who maybe doesn't know what that term means, right? Like you need to know what a raid is. You need to know what's acceptable versus not.
You're right. And I think we need to start with terms.
Yeah. So, I think Twitch creator camp is a place where you can go and find a lot of the stuff, and we can link that in the description of this video for people to find the etiquette. But a lot of it is finding the terms
Y'all can hear Bacardi in the background, I guarantee it.
I guarantee it. I knew this was going to happen. She's meowing at the door. I told you it was going to happen.
Yeah, it's okay.
She's not going to behave, though.
She will. She'll get over it in a second. See? She's already gone. Oh, no, there she is.
Maybe I should just hold her. I don't know. What do you think?
Finish your statement, then we'll get the cat.
So basically, and if you're part of our community already, you totally understand the chaos of what this is. But
she's clingy.
She's
so
clingy.
Least.
She's so clingy.
Stage 5.
But it's the case that there's a whole glossary of terms. Twitch etiquette kind of being the overarching term that encompasses what it means to behave on Twitch. As an example, like you said, with self-promotion essentially means you're going into a place and talking about your own content. And in some places that's acceptable. In other places, that is acceptable only in certain conditions. And in some spaces, that's not acceptable at all. Like you mentioned the example of banning. So, like, in our space, we have certain people who are what's called a VIP, which everybody knows what a VIP is. It's just a status you can assign to certain members.
Very important player.
Right.
No, I'm just kidding.
You can assign a VIP status to members of your community so that they get a special badge next to their name. And that in my community means that you have, if you are a streamer, earned the right to talk about your stream without me asking. Not every streamer runs that way. So one of the biggest things that's important about any part of Twitch etiquette is when you go to a channel for the first time, please read the rules.
Yeah, so your first time clicking on the chat box or the chat here, chat now, type message here, whatever it says, I honestly forgot.
Type message here.
Type message here, yeah. So if it's your first time in the channel, you click on it, you're going to see a thing pop up, and it's the streamer's list of rules that they wrote down. Right? So a lot of the time it's going to say, hey, no self-promotion, no bullying, no sexual harassment, things like that.
Right.
And, I say vice versa. and etc. Right? There's going to be other rules that they have. Like no backseat gaming, no backseat cooking, no.
We'll get into more of what those mean.
Yeah, whatever they decide to write down.
But it's important to read those because you can't understand what behavior is expected of you as a viewer without reading those. Because even if let's say you and I are in a chat and we recognize a familiar person from another person's stream, and then we go to their stream for the first time, but we just know their name, we don't know their stream and their content.
Exactly.
We can't assume that just because they were in person A's chat that this person B that we're going into for the first time sees eye to eye with person A about etiquette and what the rules are.
Exactly.
Everybody runs things differently.
So much differently. And it's also different to see like people in chat versus people on their stream. And I've seen it, countless times, different types of personalities while they're chatting in someone else's stream versus when they're streaming. And there's a lot of people that take their rules extremely seriously, and as every streamer should, right? Because if you give an inch, someone's going to take a mile. And not only that, but every other viewer that's in there is going to say, oh, so-and-so is allowed to, stretch the limits a little bit further. So let me try to act up a little bit more and see where my boundary is.
Right.
And as a streamer, you kind of, in all fairness, you want to avoid that as best as you can. Right. As she said with the VIPs and the self-promotion, talking about the streams and whatnot, someone who's a first-time chatter is going to see that and be like, oh, yeah, hey, by the way, I stream too. That's a no-no.
And so, like, for some creators,
it's tough.
Yeah, no, it varies so much. And some creators will instantly say, oh, you're banned, you're not allowed to type in my stream anymore because you broke a rule. Now, one of the things that I have tried to do, because I think it's important for a lot of reasons, is to educate people on why that's not okay. Number one, because there's not a lot of streamers who do it, they'll just ban for it. Number two, you have to understand and explain to people sometimes that not all rules are the same in every channel. And I also think it's important to address that not every person that you're speaking to speaks the same first language as you. We have a lot of viewers who have come to our chat and expressed that they have used Twitch as a place to learn English. And it's not their first language. And so they often will say, excuse me if this doesn't make sense, or we'll kind of try to understand that it means, for the most part, it's almost fluent. And, they do a very good job. Every now and then there's little words, and there's been a handful of
there'll be a mix-up, and you're like, I know what you meant, but that's definitely not what that means.
Right, or like, we don't use that word for it in English, we use this, or something like that, right?
There's a lot of people with, with social disabilities as well, or perhaps learning disabilities.
Right, so we have to understand that any viewer who comes to your chat may not understand or speak your language, may not understand the terms or the tone that you're using.
Social cues,
Absolutely, especially because there are a large number of people on Twitch who suffer from intellectual disabilities of some kind or physical disabilities of some kind that limit their ability to understand things in certain circumstances. So
it's great to be lenient, especially, in the chat. We say, hey, let's say a first-time chatter comes in and be like, hey, I'm just started streaming, like your channel, can you give me any tips? It's like, cool, appreciate you being here, thank you for the compliment. But just as a heads up, what you just did is a huge no-no. Right. We're not going to, you're not going to get banned here or any trouble. We're going to just let you know, don't do it again, obviously. But also just as a heads up, if you do this in multiple people's channels, you're going to see that a lot of people are going to ban you for it. A lot of people are going to time you out. A lot of people are just going to completely delete your message. You never know. There's going to be a lot of different recourses.
Right. So like for me, I use it as a opportunity to have a teaching moment and explain why it's not acceptable, to explain why it's against the rules, to explain why you might get in trouble for it. Because some people who maybe don't understand what self-promotion means, or don't understand social cues, or don't understand your language, or whatever the case may be, whatever reason they don't understand it, or maybe they're just not educated about the fact that it even is a thing that is not acceptable every place.
You never know.
Some people may pop in and say it and not realize that it comes across when you say, hi, I'm a streamer, I'm just getting started, please follow me, that you're basically saying, hi, my party's better than this one, come hang out with me. Like, that's how it comes across.
It's an insult to the streamer, especially because you spent to a seasoned streamer who's sit there and built a community and built a huge room. Granted, in all fairness, you're not just going to lose everybody for something like that. Right. And we all know that, right?
Right, but that's not the point.
But it comes across that way, like, hey, by the way, I stream, so I see you have a lot of people in here. Why don't all your people come follow and hang out with me?
Yeah. So
and it's like, hey, I put in all this work. No offense, you're just getting started. You got to put in the miles. You got to put in the time. You do. You have to put in the time. And
I think people coming in who are doing that are looking for instant success. There is I mean, I would say there is some, but it's very limited, and you have to be extremely lucky or have a backing of really big people or something that.
If you have someone in your corner that's, that has a big room, then yeah, you're golden.
Right.
But even then, you still have to put in the time. You just stream all the time. You have to put in the work.
Right. I see people all the time who say to me, I've watched you for years, or I see in other people's chat that I've watched so-and-so for years, and I'm thinking about getting started. What should I do? The first thing I always tell them is to read about Twitch etiquette. Because if you're a streamer, you absolutely need to know it so that you can decide what pieces of Twitch etiquette you want to have as a serious component in your rules, how you want to conduct yourself, kind of policing Twitch etiquette and moderating the chat and allowing people to behave in certain ways versus not. You also want to understand for yourself what's appropriate and what's not while you're trying to build your community. Because if
what you're going to allow and what you're not going to allow.
Right, and then also going into other people's chat. I even try to be mindful of, let's say I happen to go into a stream that's recommended to me on the homepage because I might have, friends who watch that stream, or maybe, we watch the same streamers or whatever, and it's recommended to me. If I go into a chat and then I see 3-4 names that know me and they say something like, hey, Kyle, how was your stream last night? I'm already, it gets awkward. I feel weird because I don't want the person who I'm just watching for the first time to think I'm self-promoting when really someone just asked me about it. Which is different, but it's like you never know how someone's going to react. So you just have to be prepared and be educated is the best thing that you can do.
And really what you want to do is craft like a stock message of some kind when that happens, tag the person and say, something along the lines of, hey, I'm new here.
Or just like, hey, I'm doing well. How are you doing? And just kind of, I just kind of ignore it off. Ignore that message. But just being aware that that's possible is something that's important. And I think, one of the things that we've run into is having to explain to a lot of people that it's not, she's meowing so bad.
I don't know if you can hear her in the mic.
I don't know if you can or not.
Finish your statement. I'll touch on a little further while you get her.
So I think one of the things that we've just done that's different that I don't see a lot is educating people on why. Because I don't think for many people who have been banned for it, they've ever had someone stop to educate them as to why it's not okay. And so then they just keep doing the same behavior. And that's problematic. And I'm going to go get her.
And to touch on that a little bit, we have, the larger you are as a streamer, the more moderators you're going to have, or really just moderators in general. And the moderators are basically your police for the chat, right? So the streamer might not even see that message when it comes through. The moderators might see it and go ahead and just say, you know what? No, that's not allowed here. Thanks, but no thanks. And that's something that needs to be thought of as well. Is that we entrust our moderators with everything.
That's another thing. What's a moderator? Explain that for people.
I just did. Oh, they're like the police of the channel. Gotcha. So they have the abilities to ban somebody, delete messages, highlight messages, things like that. They basically are an extension of us.
Mm-hmm. Right. And people we trust to help run the stream for us.
Exactly.
Is a great way to explain it, I think.
Exactly.
This is Bacardi, if you're new and are just finding us.
She is a handful and a half, and she likes to be where the people are.
We should have named her Ariel, I'm just saying. We should.
Little baby.
Yeah.
And now she wants to come in here. Now she's like, nah, put me down.
Yeah. You want to go sit over there? Okay.
Good girl.
She's going to go sit in her cube. Okay. So, I think that, sorry, I'm kind of off track now that she came in. But I think, that's something that's important. But there's a lot more to it than that. But it's become clear to me over the years of streaming that you have to sometimes make things very black and white. You cannot say vague or kind of gray statements or kind of like you can't beat around the bush and hope that someone understands you, especially because understanding that somebody may have an intellectual disability or some kind of other disability or something that contributes to their ability to interpret what you're saying, whether it's the tone of your voice, whether it's the words that you're choosing, whatever it is, you need to be prepared for them to not understand it unless you're incredibly black and white and blunt. As like, hey, when you say I am going to go set up stream, so now I'm going to lurk. That's the same thing as saying, I'm a streamer, follow me.
Exactly.
And a lot of people don't realize that. Or, hey, I'm just getting started streaming, can you help me? Is along the lines of, like, you're kind of teetering that line of where it's acceptable versus not in a lot of streams.
And you know, the nice thing to say is absolutely I'm going to help you.
Right.
But also at the same time, you know, if you sit there and you give someone advice like on stream and whatnot, you know, what we always say is, hey, send me a message. We'll get you started, right?
Yeah.
But other than that, like, no go, right?
Yeah. Like we just had an example of somebody in the last couple of months who got started, and they reached out for some help privately, and when we explained it to them and then they came into chat and did one of the things that is a no-no, I said, hey, you remember we talked about this, and I know you're new, but just as a heads up, that is a perfect example of one of those things that's kind of on the border of like where we don't go, you know, of what's
and
not
you can't allow,
allowed.
and that's the problem is like if you decide in your chat that that's not allowed, you can't even allow, you know, that, because what it's doing is, you know,
you're signaling to the people
exactly. You're basically saying, "Hey, I'm a streamer." Hee hee.
Yeah.
And and again, you know, that just goes with the gray area. And it's such a tough road to navigate, and that's why it's so important to set your rules, set your boundaries, and stick to them.
Yeah. Definitely.
You know, and what we tell everybody is, Bacardi, I don't know what you're doing. What we tell everybody is, you know, hey, no self-promotion of any kind. And you know, we do give warnings and things like that, but eventually if it keeps happening, you know, it does, you know, result in a timeout, which is the user won't be able to chat for a little while of whatever time duration we set, or a possible ban, because at a certain point, you know, if you don't, you know, if you continue not listening, it'd be silly of us not to, you know, discipline in some way, shape, or form.
It's the equivalent of like disciplining your child. You put them in timeout because they weren't paying attention, and then if that doesn't work, then you find a different method of discipline. You know.
Exactly. I mean, it's like the example that we had come to the other day was if you're a lifeguard at a swimming pool and a kid keeps going to the deep end and not being able to swim, you know, at a certain point as a lifeguard, you got to say, bro, you're not allowed in the deep end anymore, right? You can't. You're not allowed here.
Right.
And it's like I said, you know, it's a tough thing to navigate. Do you do it instantly, you know, after the first try? Do you do it after the second? Do you do it after the third?
Right.
And that's one of those things as you know, as a streamer that you have to you know, consider yourself, right? And figure out where you want to be in that spectrum.
You need to be on the same page with your moderators about it too, because that's another thing that happens a lot, is that you may sometimes not be on the same page with your moderators, and then what happens is you're frustrated and they don't know it, or vice versa, and you need to be able to communicate. You know, that's why, like, we personally, like, we even just had an example recently. Someone came into chat and said that they needed to contact us about something, and I was like, well, you need to send it to the moderators and they'll determine about whether or not it's urgent. If it's not about my physical safety, then right now I'm not dealing with it, you know. But we've kind of come to that understanding with our moderators over time about, you know, being on the same page about things, or, you know, one of them knows that they can, you know, pop into chat and just say, hey, I need you to check your messages right now when you get a chance, and I know to do that, you know, and we kind of go from there. But I think, you know, that being one component, kind of moving on to a different one too, what we call kind of backseating, and I'll not call it backseat gaming because it could be backseating in any category. You know,
backseating is a broad term, and it has different variables throughout, you know, the different categories, right?
Sure. I guess maybe you can touch a little bit more on what it means in the gaming world, since you know a little bit more about that, and I can talk about it from my perspective too.
I mean, it's such a broad spectrum in the gaming world, right? So like for me, let's say I'm playing a competitive game mode in Call of Duty, and you know the terms, or I guess the rounds last very, or they end very quickly, I should say. There's no real backseat gaming, and there's no really harm to it, right? You know, someone's gonna be like, oh, you should have gone left instead of right. Well, yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. Hindsight 2020. You know? But like, let's say you're playing an RPG or some type of adventure game. You know, these people are gonna, you know, there's people that are gonna come in and be like, oh, you should definitely do this. It's like, well, hold on, I'm doing something else. Like, no, you got to stop what you're doing right now and do it. It's like, hold on.
Right.
No. Right. Unless you're one of those people, again, if you want to allow that, by all means. But that's pretty much the definition of it.
Yeah. I think knowing that it's possible that you could get in trouble for it is really kind of the root of what we're trying to focus on. And, you know, in the cooking world, it's kind of the people who pop in and say, oh, that's not how you make salsa, or I wouldn't make it that way. And it's like, okay, fine, but this is not your kitchen, so you could go and make it that way if you want to. Yeah. You know? Nobody asked your opinion.
It'll be in the food processor, and they'll be like, that's not a blender.
It's like, okay, it doesn't matter. It's not your kitchen.
But it does matter. It's not a blender.
You know.
But it does matter.
This isn't the kitchen. Sorry.
Just little things like that. You know, you're going to have people all the time that are going to pop in and try to correct you. And I will say, like, in the food and drink category, or just, you know, cooking in general, it's quite interesting to see how many 5-star Michelin chefs are on Twitch. Literally everybody all of a sudden is a Michelin star chef. Like, I'm sorry, bro. Like, really?
Yeah.
Literally everyone. It's crazy.
Yeah. The biggest thing I get all the time, and I think it's important to note that I am not classically trained. I have never worked in a professional kitchen ever. I get a lot of comments on my knife skills. Yeah. And I will say my knife skills are not perfect. I have not been to culinary school. However, I'm also limited by my shoulder injury in my ability to chop quickly and to hold control of a knife sometimes. But that, it sounds like an excuse when I say it out loud, but it does.
It's not so much an excuse. It's just an explanation of, hey, you know, I can't rock the knife like normal, or like you're supposed to. I have to
take my time and be a little bit more careful with it. But that happens a lot. And I think it's important that you as a streamer try not to get discouraged when that happens, you know, because a lot of times, whether it's somebody who's self-promoting or somebody who's backseating, you have to understand now, number one, they may not know that it's not acceptable. No one may have told them why it's not, but also, you know, just don't, that's what they want, maybe, is the reaction. You never know.
It's probably a reaction. Like, it's like a slight, right? Like a slight insult.
Like, I'm better than you because I have this and you don't, or I know how to do this and you don't, or I do it this way, or whatever.
Exactly. You know, and it very well could be that, and it very well could be just an ill-timed or ill-written message, you know?
Sure. You know, I think it's often the case that we have to kind of sit back and just not take things so seriously when it's kind of, you know, a smaller infringement upon the rules, you know, and just try not to let you lose your groove or something like that, because I found, like, in the beginning someone would come in and critique my knife skills and I would go on this big long rant and just tell them, like, listen, you know, I don't know what you're dealing with that made you so hurt that you feel the need to hurt other people, but, like, please go get help. I can help you find resources. And now I'm just kind of like, cool, your mom doesn't know how to chop, and I've kind of adjusted, but
and that's why I love you.
But you also, I think that kind of, you know, segues us into the fact that you kind of have to have a thick skin overall.
You really do. And I know that's not quite part of the etiquette, but also at the same time, you know, there's a lot of people who blatantly disregard Twitch etiquette to try to get at the streamer and try to get a reaction out of you. Why? Most likely TikTok clips or a YouTube clip of some kind. Basically, they're probably screen recording.
Or they're hanging out in Discord with a bunch of people just trying to get a laugh, or who knows.
There's always some reason behind it.
Right.
Whether it be just, you know, that they're just feeling that kind of way. You know, there's always going to be those people that do that. They're going to read the rules and say, oh, none of this, none of this, none of this. Great. Let's do all of that.
Yeah. I mean, it's generally speaking the case that just the internet is not full of all good and happy people. You know?
Of course not. I mean, anyone who's read a YouTube comment. You know?
Oh my gosh, YouTube is one of the worst. Okay, so let's see.
There's two different kinds of people. There's people who watch YouTube videos, and there's people who comment on YouTube videos.
Oh, yeah, they're a whole different breed, man. They really are. YouTube is a scary place.
It is. But you know what's funny is, like, there's plenty of times I come across channels that, like, it's just nothing but hate in the comments 3/4 of the time, and then there'll just be a random video that's suggested to me, and every comment in the video is like, you're doing great, keep going. And I'm like,
how did you get all those? Like, they must have deleted all the negatives or something. Maybe.
Gotta be.
Maybe. I mean, maybe they're just lucky and they got all supportive comments.
I'm sorry. All you people, follow me.
Right?
Hashtag self-promotion.
Where are you people? But yeah, so I think those are some of the big components. Respecting the moderators is another big part of Twitch etiquette. Yep. Some people who have not familiarized themselves with Twitch etiquette, or even what the little symbols or badges next to people's names mean, do not understand that the pink and white diamond symbol means VIP, or that the green and white sword symbol means moderator. So it's like, you should not mess with that person because they have the ability to make it possible for you to not chat again.
Exactly. I mean, it's. I don't think we've ever had to get rid of a VIP for any type of negative reason, you know, because the VIP badge is an earned thing. Like, you got to be, you know, to get a VIP in our channel, you're there all the time for a very long period of time, and for, you know, a long duration during the streams. You know, like pretty much all of our VIPs are there every night, commenting and chatting and hanging out for the duration of the 7 or 8 hours or 6 hours or whatever it may be, and are
often big supporters of our other content outside of Twitch as well.
Absolutely.
And our VIPs have changed from seasons just because seasons of life have made it possible for, you know, more people to come in and for other people to leave and not really be able to have Twitch as part of their daily life anymore.
Exactly. And that's another thing after, you know, post-COVID and post-shutdown. You know, when the shutdown first happened, Twitch exploded. And that's when you started. So, like, the instant success that you had found kind of dwindled off a little bit, and like, you know, all these we'll get a random name pop in and we're like, oh my god, I haven't seen you in years,
like
right?
literally like 2 years.
Yeah.
But
it's,
you know,
surreal
for sure. And I think, you know, that kind of goes with the seasons. You know, there's seasons of the year, there are seasons of live streaming content. You know, the holidays are a really big time, like in November, December, because a lot of people deal with seasonal depression issues because it's gray and dark and cold. There's less to do outside. A lot of people struggle more around the holidays for various reasons related to loved ones and or lack thereof. And because of the weather and because of those things, there's a lot more people on. But, you know, we kind of have less in the summer and things like that too.
Well, really what happens, I mean, pretty much when it gets cold, probably through March, you know, is like the Twitch busy season. Sure. But when March happens, everyone comes to Florida.
Yeah, that too. Oh my gosh, we get all the tourists down here around like mid-February till end of April.
End of summer.
From various different spring breaks and all
really
places
till the end of
over
September.
the world. Yeah, for sure.
I was just making a joke there. I'm sorry.
All the tourists everywhere. I'm trying to think what else we wanted to touch on. So we touched on self-promotion. We touched on backseating. We touched on respecting the moderators. There was something else.
We want to talk. I would like to kind of poke on, like tones in chat. Right.
Ooh, okay,
it's really hard to perceive someone's messages in chat.
Sure.
You know, someone could be saying something that's a joke, but if it's typed out with, you know, in a certain way, right, it might not be perceived as that. Or if it's really insulting, it's like, wow, that's not okay. And they're like, oh, oops, sorry, it was a joke. And
I think that also goes too with the regulars and the VIPs and the moderators. It's kind of like one of the things that's tough to navigate as a streamer is that you know, one of the kind of cultures of Twitch is that a lot of times moderators are just kind of people who are like messing with you and trolling with you, but they have a sword and they have like powers in the stream.
The higher up in the stream you get, the more you mess with the streamer. I don't know why that is,
I don't
but it's
know,
true.
But it is.
What it is.
And our moderators troll the heck out of us, but we love it because it's meant in a loving way. You know, they'll tease us about being short, or they'll say jokes. I'm short. Whatever. But you get the point. And it's kind of like, it's tough to navigate that, like, a brand new person hasn't necessarily earned the right to say something that is kind of bordering on snide or kind of, you know, hurtful as a joke, but it's meant in a loving way.
Right. So, like, if one of the mods or one of the VIPs comes in and it's like, hey, Kyle, you're short. And that's, like, a running, like,
right.
Running
or they
joke
call
in the
me a
chat.
Keebler elf, or...
Right, but if you're a first-time chatter, you're like, haha, you are a Keebler elf. It's like, no, I don't think so, bro.
Yeah.
You just got here.
Right, but it's like you have to kind of sometimes explain to people the difference between somebody who has been a part of the community and understands the joke and understands, you know, when it's okay to say things like that, when it's not, you know, the ways that you're allowed to communicate about that or not. And it's tough because, you know, your community that is typing is a reflection of you, right? And, you know, we find all the time that, you know, we go into streams and we observe for a period of time before we chat.
Yep.
But not everybody does that. And so people will kind of just pop in and just start rolling with it the way they behave everywhere. And they become, you know, with some of our friends who stream that we're close with and speak to regularly, they kind of become pattern people that we're all watching out for because they're regularly pushing the limits of what's acceptable.
Yeah, and that's, you know... That's a great thing, you know, with the mod team and whatnot. We have a group chat going on with everybody, and essentially we're, you know, it's like, hey, you know, this person came in, and what do you think about this? Was it harmless? Do you know them from any other places? Do you know anyone who might, or, you know, whatever the case may be?
Have you heard of them having the same behavior other places? Is it just us?
And a lot of times we'll see someone pop in. And someone be like, yo, mod chat, and you look down and they're like, hey, I've seen this person be a problem in other streams. So just be as a just as a heads up. If I ban them or tie them out, or, you know, if you see something that I miss, you know, just to be on the lookout.
Right, definitely. And it, you know, it's super helpful having a community because, you know, at this point we stream in what's called the just chatting category on Twitch, because we do a lot more just talking and hanging out while I'm cooking or playing a game than we do anything else.
Chaos chatting with a side of cooking.
Yeah, that's what we typically call it these days. but we came up in the food and drink category. Yeah. And so a lot of the people that we kind of initially became friends with, and people still know me as a food and drink streamer. And there's nothing wrong with that because I am.
That's what you do.
Right, it's what I do while I'm streaming, you know. But we built a community of a lot of people who are able to kind of keep watchful eyes in their own communities, inform us about problems in their own chat. And that's a really big part of it. You know, I think that could kind of segue us into the appropriate way to network. On Twitch, because that's a big part of etiquette. So it kind of ties in a little bit with self-promotion. But, you know, for me, of course, during the pandemic, etiquette and networking were kind of tied in with the fact that there wasn't really anything to do outside. So I was in streams all the time. But, you know, if you're a person who's expecting to go into a stream and just make instant friends, sure, it could happen. It's not likely, though.
It's not unlikely. Really what it is there's a lack of people, you know, you don't want to jump in and strictly talk to the chat, right? Like, you know, add everybody. You don't want to do that right off the rip. Right. You don't want to just ignore everyone if someone asks you and just talk to the streamer. What you want to do is you want to flow with the conversation a little bit. Mm-hmm. Like if, say, someone's talking about spaghetti. Oh, that's really nice. I had spaghetti, you know, the other day for dinner. Mm-hmm. What kind of spaghetti are you making? Or what do you put in your sauce? Or, you know, basically make a statement, ask a question, and let the streamer basically notice you and reply to you. And then you can kind of gauge it from there and continue on.
Now, one of the things that people may not know is that these days, it was not the case when I first started streaming, but these days, there is now a feature that streamers can turn on, so we know if you've never chatted before. Yep. It will show first-time chatter above your name if you type for the first time. And I don't say that to intimidate people, so if you are a lurker and feel like you want to come out of, you know, watching and not typing and chat, please do. We love getting to meet lurkers and have people feel comfortable. I just say that because, you know, it's not like you'll just kind of slide in and no one's going to know. Pretty much everybody has that setting on, right? So, like, for me, if I know I've never been there before, I'm going to be very careful about what my first message is, understanding that, you know, they may have seen me other places, but I still want to just, you know, hey, how are you? Or, you know, happy Monday, happy Friday, whatever. And just something like that to kind of just, you know, how are you doing? Or how's this game going? Something that just kind of sparks them to automatically respond.
Yeah,
you know?
Exactly.
When they read my message, as opposed to just hi or something like that, you know?
Yeah, right. Like, just saying hi, you're like, oh, hey, what's up? And then you move on, right? But, like, if you want to network, like, especially if, let's say you're starting out streaming, and I think this is kind of where it ties in. When you're starting out streaming, you want to network. You don't want to self-promote. But if you implant yourself into the community, you know, start getting the streamer to know you, starting to get to know chat.
Building relationships with other people in the stream.
And if you ever get the chance to raid them, that is your time to shine, right? Basically, that's the way to network. Implant yourself in the community, and then, you know, at the end of your stream, go in with the raid, and they're gonna be like, "Oh man, that's so cool! I didn't know you that you streamed." It's a shout out. You have that name recognition in chat, so people are actually more likely to follow you, right? Versus like, oh, just a random streamer, appreciate you, cool, no, moving on. But the fact that you have implanted yourself in that community is going to make a huge, huge difference.
Right.
Have
we defined what a raid is? I don't know if we have.
I don't think we have either, now that you say that.
Yeah, and I just kind of realized that as soon as you were saying it. So there's a concept on Twitch called a raid, where at the end of your stream, let's say, for me, when I'm done cooking and we're going to go sit down to eat, I have two options. I can either press kind of the end live stream broadcast button, or I can take all of my viewers who are still in chat and put them in the chat of somebody else who's going to continue on for a period of time. So I can
keep the party rolling just
somewhere
at the neighbor's party,
Exactly. So I can take with a command in my chat all of my people over somewhere else and say, let's go and follow them and see what they're doing. And that's a great way to network, because you can help people find you and recognize you as a streamer. I will also note there, though, that I think it's important to recognize that not every streamer, unfortunately, receives raids the same way in terms of the way that they think that they're important versus not. Yes. We had a period of time, we touched on this, I think, in the first podcast episode, where we went into a raid for a streamer we had never been to before, and this is why I do not ever raid anybody that I've never been to before now.
Yeah, we call it blind raiding.
Right, going in without ever having chatted blind, right? And when you're choosing somebody to raid, just be mindful that, depending on the size of your community and the size of the person that you're raiding, I'm not going to just raid Ninja right off the bat because,
right.
Ninja being a giant streamer, I'm probably going to be a
even
nobody.
Notice the raid.
Exactly.
And that's like where you go to park your community if you really are just done and you don't have anyone else. There's no other option. Absolutely. Take your community, there as long as it's probably, I would say, in the same genre because, your community is going to want to stay within that community, if that makes sense.
Right. So, like, for me, I'm typically choosing the same genre or a friend of the stream that most people recognize, maybe one of the team members that we have, because there are teams on Twitch where you can be under the same umbrella as a bunch of other people on, like, almost like a sports team, but online. And we try to choose people like that to take people to. But just being mindful that, you may raid into someone and, not every streamer is going to be super excited that you raided them. Not every streamer is going to thank you for it. Not every streamer is even going to say anything out loud. Yeah. Some people just don't handle it that way, which I think is unfortunate, and I think that they should.
And there's also those people who are going to insult you for raiding them.
Sure.
Which is what happened to us. It was one of our first raids ever. Yeah. I mean,
like in the first week
or two.
Yeah.
This person literally was like, really? A raid of, like, what, 4 or 3? And we were like, read the chat again. Obviously, you can't read.
It was like 13, and it was like, we just doubled your audience, but okay.
They had like 2 or 3 people in there already, but they were like, really? You're raiding me with like 3 people? And it was like, okay, you're never going to get a raid from us ever again.
I will say, as you're networking, don't be discouraged raiding as you're starting out.
No, absolutely.
I think unless you have some kind of emergency, you should raid at the end of every stream.
Yeah. And another thing to think of is hang out as long as you can. It doesn't have to be as long as you can. Hang out for at least 5 minutes. Join in on the conversation a little bit, 5 to 10 minutes, and then just say, hey, I've got to go clean up, going to go eat dinner. Have a great stream, I'll be lurking, and that's pretty much where you want to leave it.
It's often the case that streamers understand that at the end of your stream, that's your ending because you have something else you have to do, whether you're going to work, you're eating dinner, you're cleaning up, whatever the case may be,
going
right?
To bed,
going to bed, that, it's not necessarily expected in every place that you're going to stick around for a long period of time.
But so definitely don't not chat. Like, say something, at least. Yeah. Do your raid call. Say, hey, I really hate to raid and run, but unfortunately something came up. Or hey, time is pressing. I really got to go. But definitely let them know.
Or just, unfortunately, I had to run. Hope you have a great rest of your stream is what I usually say, something like that. But I think it's a great way to network. For me personally, I watched a lot of streams for 5-10 minutes to see what the chat was doing, to see how people were interacting with the streamer, and also to see how the streamer was interacting with the chat.
Yes, that's a huge one.
Because I want to take my audience to a place where they're going to be respected and accepted in the same way that they are in my chat.
Absolutely.
And I think that that's a great way. Also sitting there and thinking about finding ways to network. Most streamers, not all, have an about page. If you don't have an about page, you should have an about page because Twitch has an about section on your profile where you can make kind of a biography. You can link your other social medias. You can do all different sorts of things. We kind of explained a little bit of the background of us. We had links to like our Instagram and our Twitter and those sorts of things. Our YouTube. We had a link to our website. All those sorts of things. But it helps
Shameless
people.
Plug.
It helps people to better understand who you are.
Yep.
I read most people's about pages before I chat.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I want to know the way that they describe themselves.
Yes, that's a very good observation with that.
And I think also looking at, there's a concept on Twitch called channel points, where you have the ability as you watch to earn points that some streamers have customized things that you can use, like make me take a sip of water for 300 points, or ask me a question for 200 points, as just random examples. If there are ways you can interact with said streamer by doing that, find a way to do that.
Absolutely.
That's helped me a lot, especially with their ask me a question or
yes.
Something like that. Change the light color, and then they have to ask you what color, and then is that your favorite color? And finding ways to keep the conversation going, I think.
It's always good to like ask them like whatever they're doing, like why are they doing whatever they're doing, or how did they get into said hobby, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it be whatever game they're playing, like what got you interested in this game? Like if they are a strictly like a Fortnite streamer, Call of Duty streamer, Minecraft, World of Warcraft, whatever it may be, or food and drink, someone like her who's a cook, it's great to say, hey, how did you get into this, and what is it about this that holds your attention, right? So it sparks that conversation, and it gets them talking for a little bit longer than just a few word answer.
Right. Right. And I think, I try to come up with questions to get to know them better. Even just how long have you been a streamer? Just, what got you into streaming? Sometimes that's one of the things that I'll ask. And I will say I've pulled back on that a little bit as I've gone on. But that was one of the questions I used to ask a lot, especially during COVID, because a lot of people had the same type of answer.
Right. I've got nothing else to do.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Yeah,
you're stuck inside too. Got it.
Yeah, we're all stuck inside. Sometimes even just asking people, like, what part of the world they're from, those sorts of things, trying to spark conversations that way. Just finding a way to get to know people better, you know?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And you want to be mindful of respecting their rules when you do that, too. Like, we have, like, an Ask Me Anything redemption, but it has to be within the limits of the rules. So, like, we don't want people to bring up, politics or religion or something along those lines. It's supposed to be, like, you asking me, like, what's your favorite pasta or what's your favorite movie or something like that,
Playing Desert Island. Top 5 movies that you're bringing with you. Go.
Legends of the Fall, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, Legally Blonde.
All right, Meredith. I like that.
I don't actually. Those are not my answers, but I just wanted to quote The Office. Do you have a Desert Island set of movies?
I don't. I mean, I would.
Guardians of the Galaxy would absolutely be on yours.
It would be Guardians of the Galaxy 1. I liked 2, but
I think you would pick Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and probably Iron Man.
I would pick Iron Man 1.
I think you would pick 13 Hours.
13 Hours, Guardians of the Galaxy, The Matrix, and A Knight's Tale.
Ooh, there you go. You do like that one.
It's just like a comfort movie,
Yeah.
Does it get old? Sure, but it's one of those things that I can put on and go to sleep.
Yeah.
Right? Or I can get, put on and do something else. Or just if I want background noise, there it is.
Yeah. Yeah. I can only think of 2 off the top of my head. So.
What did I?
The Wizard of Oz, because that's my favorite movie.
Oh, yeah.
And then the second one would be Young Frankenstein. But other than that, I don't know if I can think of, like, definite ones. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. Maybe I'll report back next week, next episode.
Back, yeah.
I'll come up with my list. And feel free to drop yours in a comment down below if you'd like.
Top 5 movies.
Yeah.
Can't watch anything else ever again.
For the rest of your life. Desert Island.
But I see, like, it's a great question because it sparks a conversation, right?
Sure. Absolutely.
Even just me joking around. What have we wasted? 20 years? Oof. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, so I'm trying to think if that's all we wanted to cover today.
I mean, in all fairness, there's a lot more that really goes into it, right?
This is kind of like a brief overview.
Yeah, brief overview for sure. We always recommend going to, what is it called, the Creator Camp, and just and read it. Whether you're, starting stream or even if you've been streaming for a little while and you want to just broaden your horizons, it's always good. There's also other useful information about how to network and building your audience and really one of the most important things is holding your audience, right? Like you want to try to be interactive, right? So one of the biggest things that I always tell people is when you're just starting out, you're not going to have anybody in there, but you always want to be talking to Chad. I call Chad.
You need to find ways to fill space because at any point you could have a person popping in
and they're just lurking
and that person is watching you, deciding if they're going to follow, watching you, deciding if they're going to raid, watching you, deciding if they're going to subscribe, watching and deciding if they're going to promote you and bring other people to you. Whatever the case may be, doesn't matter. At any point you could be having a brand new person who has not become a part of your community yet, who's hanging out, waiting for a reason to become a part of your community. So if I'm just standing there and for 5 minutes I'm not talking, I'm not likely to give them a reason to stay versus if I continue to talk about what I'm doing. So like for instance, if it happens to be a slower night in the kitchen, right? And I'm getting ready to build the pasta sauce. We'll just use this because I made pasta last night. Building the pasta sauce, kind of explaining, okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to build the pasta sauce, and let me explain a little bit about the process of how I'm going to do that. So I'm going to get out my ingredients, and here's the ingredients, and here's why I'm going to use them. Here's how I'm going to put them together. Here's the process, and now I'm going to show you how to do it, right? But now I've just filled 5 to 10 minutes of space, even if no one is chatting, by talking about what I'm about to do.
And another great thing is sprinkle in some questions here and there.
Yeah.
Be like, what do you guys like in your pasta sauce? Do y'all put oregano in it? Do you put basil in it? Things like that.
Have you guys ever made a sauce like this before?
Because what you're going to do is if you drop these sudden call to actions, you never know who's lurking is going to be like, you know what? That sounds like good. I didn't know. I've never used basil. Is it any good in there? Or,
yeah.
you know, whatever the case may be, especially if you're playing games, you know, always be vocalized, right? Always be looking at the camera too, like game, camera, yo, you know, yo, did you see that play? Oh, that was really cool. Yo, what kind of gun do you use? Like, what should I swap? Should I swap? Should I do this? You know, if you're playing a different game, hey, you know, what kind of spell should I use instead of this? Whatever it may be, you know, you just want to drop those subtle questions, you know, like call to action kind of deal, because again, you never know who's lurking.
Yeah.
And the numbers, like you see, like some of the streaming platform or the OBS platforms like Streamlabs will have a viewer count that you can turn on or off. I believe OBS Studio has them now.
Don't look at your viewer count.
Also, if you do look at your viewer count, it does not update anywhere remotely close to it. So, like, let's say I pop in for a minute, it's not going to register that I'm there. So you're not even going to see it. So if I pop in for a minute, don't like what I see, and leave, you're not going to see that I was there.
Right. So I think, you know, that's another good thing too.
I think it updates, what, 5 minutes? Every 5?
I think that's when Twitch pulls it, yeah.
Yeah. And I believe everything goes with that.
Yeah. No, I think so too. And I think it's important. That's another, you actually, by saying that, brought up another etiquette thing. It's usually not polite to comment on how many viewers, even though you as a viewer can see how many a streamer has. In my chat, people basically know that unless the number is 69, just because it's kind of a running joke, don't say it, right? So, like, this week, we actually had a night where, like, 4 or 5 different people said it, and I was like, oh, really? I wasn't looking at the number. Oh, really? I wasn't looking at the number. And it started making me nervous.
At a certain point, they're like, oh, my gosh, you got 150 people in here. It's like, great. Hey, don't put that pressure on me. We're just hanging out.
Right. Like, I'm talking to you guys the same way that I would whether I have one person in here or a million people in here, because here's that's another thing too, is that, you know, as you as a streamer get fixated on the numbers, you want to be mindful that you should be treating your chat exactly the same whether there's that many people in there or not. You may at certain points of the stream, like if you get a win in Call of Duty, or if I taste the food and it's delicious, be more hype and activated and excited, but you shouldn't be, you know, dull and mundane because you have 2 people,
right,
versus
and then 40,
right. And it's, I think, when you fixate on looking at that number, because I'm guilty of it, I did it in the past, and I couldn't focus. It sucks you in,
and you literally just hyper focus on that number.
Yeah,
it's honestly, there's in each and every one of the OBS platforms that it's on. If you see it, right click on it, it'll give you the option to turn it off. That is the number 1 recommendation. Always turn that off.
Don't worry about how many people are in there. Look at your average after you're done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Really what you want to do is focus on call to actions and see how many chat messages you can get, right? See how much of the conversation you can spark, because that right there is going to be your bread and butter, is the community. You know, when it comes down to it, at the very end of the day, the community is what matters. Without a community, there's really no point in streaming, you know? And that's really the goal that everybody wants. They want that conversation. They want to hang out with people while they're playing a game, or in the kitchen cooking, or just sitting there watching YouTube videos. I mean, every channel on Twitch is different, right?
Right. People are looking for company because they could watch live TV, but live TV doesn't talk back to them, right?
Exactly.
You know,
you get that interaction, and you know, like I said, those subtle questions that you're dropping throughout the time. It's going to be, you know, a night and day difference for, you know, people just lurking or communicating with you, you know, and chatting with you. And it seems that in the, you know, on the Twitch realm, like, yeah, when you watch the big streamers, they don't really talk to chat. They read like the super chats and dono messages, things like that. But it's just because their chat moves just so fast, can't really keep up with it. But when you're, you know, able to keep up with chat, it's such a grand time, and everybody and their brother would, like, is going to continue in on the conversation, right? Like, everyone there is going to, you know, chime in and keep the conversation going. I feel like a broken record here.
No,
You're looking at me like that.
No, actually, I have 2 different trains of thought, and I'm trying to keep them separated because they're very different. So the end of what you said reminded me that a handful of streamers who were much more seasoned than me, in the same category as me when I was getting started out, came back to my stream months later and kind of gave me feedback on how I had grown, because one of the things I used to do is read chat in my head.
Yes, you have to read it out loud.
You're supposed to read it out loud. And I wasn't doing that. So, like, you would come in and say, oh, hey, what kind of pasta are we making? And then I would just say, oh, yeah, penne pasta. and like no one knew why I was
like,
responding. So like the culture of live streaming is that like you're supposed to read chat out loud, and I just say that in case
it's a weird thing too.
It's weird because like that took me a long time to get used to, like being like, oh Funky, you want to know what kind of pasta I'm making, but that also fills time, right? So now my stream that might have been an hour could maybe be 2 or 3 hours because I took the time to say, oh, Funky, let me tell you what kind of pasta I'm making. And then, by the way, what kind of pasta is your favorite pasta? You know, those sorts of things.
And it's one of those things that you wish that someone told you in the beginning.
Yeah.
If someone would have said that in the beginning to us, I'd be like, oh, I understand. Like, it's when you do it, you're like, oh, I get it. Like, when you actually physically do it.
Yeah, and it just clicks. It's this weird thing. But it's funny because I remember, like, the first time that it happened and, like, a seasoned streamer said that to me, I remember feeling kind of hurt and offended and then realizing, like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Like, I remember saying it to you and you were like, yeah. And I was like, what? Like, that's not nice. And they're like, but that's what you're supposed to do. And I was like, I mean, yeah.
It's positive feedback, right. In all fairness.
Constructive feedback.
Constructive.
Yeah.
You're right. You're right.
But I know, I think that's really important. And then this is like very far left field, sort of, but I'm going to tie it in.
I'll catch it. I gotta catch
okay.
it. I gotta admit.
Okay. So you had said we had talked a little bit about the TV channel, and how people could be watching live TV, right? This is so important. I know, and you know exactly where I'm going, which is why I know your face looks like.
So many people do this. They'll come in, go. You know, I don't want to steal your thunder. Please, no.
Go for it.
This is your.
Go for it.
I get too passionate about it. Please,
okay.
By all means.
So we had mentioned that part of the reason people are watching Twitch streams is because they're looking for the interaction, right? It's kind of become the culture that people feel the need to just speak up and be frustrated when they don't like what you're doing. And, you know, I want to remind you as a viewer, as a streamer, as anything, if there's a time where you just feel like the stream is not for you for some reason, you have every right to change the channel.
Yep. If
you were watching TV and didn't like the show that turns on next after your show, you change the channel. So if you don't like what's happening in my stream or anybody else's stream, you are more than welcome to go somewhere else. Maybe I'm not the stream for you. Maybe that this is not the night for you. Yeah. You know, like for instance, like if we were doing a wine tasting and that's just not your thing and you don't want to sit there and talk about wine.
Absolutely. Don't pop into chat and complain the entire time that we're drinking wine. It's like, hey, you know, we get it. We heard you the first time. Go.
Right. So, like, don't continue to dwell on, like, oh, I don't like this game. I don't want to watch this. Or, oh, I don't like that you're making chicken Alfredo because I don't eat gluten or whatever.
And that's essentially backseat cooking, and it's against our rules. You know, at a certain point, it's like, okay, cool, we get it. No worries. You know,
I'm so sorry. What I
typically
typically do is say, I'm so sorry that you're bothered by it. You know, you are more than welcome to find somewhere else to hang out tonight if that's what would be easier for you.
Yeah, we'll be back on tomorrow or Thursday or whatever it may be.
If this is not your thing, I totally get it. You know, and that's totally, that's totally fine.
But there are those people who just continuously harp, and it's like, cool, we heard you. Don't get timed out. Don't get banned, because you never know. Again, you know, they might be having a bad day. We might be having a bad day. We both might be having a bad day, and it turns into a ban situation, and then you wake up the next day and you're like, you know what, that really wasn't worth it for either one, right?
Absolutely.
And we avoid it. That's all.
No, absolutely. I think my transitions are kind of all over the place for this episode because like I had a roadmap that like didn't really make sense, and it's like it's all coming to me as we're going through.
There's no real simple way to just go straight down the line unless we were going through the creator camp, but even then there's a lot of stuff that the creator camp leaves out.
And I think kind of the complaining thing is kind of it's sort of a segue into where I wanted to go next, which is trauma dumping. Yeah. I think so there's this kind of concept where people look to Twitch as an outlet. Sure, naturally we love that.
Absolutely.
But there's a limit, right? If we're sitting there talking about our favorite pasta types or just what we're eating for dinner and someone happens to pop in and unload this large, heavy thing about someone passing away or a friend of theirs who's struggling with depression or whatever the case may be, child abuse, their history, whatever.
We'll be having a good time and that message pops up and it's like, you just ruined it for everyone, not just us, not just chat, literally everyone. And that is it's a tough situation to navigate because really what do you say? Hey, I'm so sorry that happened. Let us be a safe space and escape from this. And then you try to move on, but it's just like, God damn, like that I'm skipping down the road and you just punch me in the face. Yeah. And I spilled my lollipop. Like, come on.
Spilled your lollipop?
Or I dropped my lollipop. I spilled my ice cream.
There you go.
Like, imagine like the kid, like in the cartoons and they got the lollipop and they're happy, and imagine just someone just...
Yeah.
And that's exactly how it feels. You're just like, and, good feelings gone.
Yeah. And I think it's really tough as a streamer to find a middle ground to navigate, because you may very well, in a 3-message span, be going from, thank you so much for gifting 2 subscriptions to people in the chat who did not have one, to, oh, you're dealing with that, and that's really heavy. Yikes. We've had people come in and talk about various traumas. I'm not going to name specific examples.
Absolutely
but
not.
Just to go from, thank you so much for gifting 2 subscriptions to my chat, to, this person
happy,
is...
And then you read the next message, and the roller coaster it went down.
And then someone else pops in and is like, oh my God, I got hired for a job. And you just go up and down and up and down. And it's exhausting as a streamer, right? And it's tough because you want to be able to be a safe space for your viewers, but there's a limit. We might have someone come in and say, hey, I had a really tough day and I need some support. And we just will say, hey, I'm sending you a virtual hug. I'm sorry you're going through that. Let's be a distraction from that tonight and go from there.
And I think that's exactly what it needs to be. It needs to be a, hey, I've had a really tough day. Don't sit there and go into extreme detail and write a novel.
Especially when the streamer has cut you off and said, like, okay, like, let's leave it at that. Because you have to remember, at any point, any other viewer in chat may be bothered or upset by what you're bringing up, and that may have ruined their day, right? Yep. They may be dealing with their own grief or their own situation that's similar, or a past trauma that they went through that was like that, and you may have brought that all back up for them.
Yep. And then now you're upset, they're upset, we're upset. And it's not really good for anybody.
Chat's upset that you have upset the streamer and the vibe is not the same.
It very well. There's been certain times when certain things have been said where it's just like, all right, now, like, at this point, I just want to end stream. Like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah.
It brought up something for me as a streamer, and now I can't be hyped for you guys. So now I got to cut, 3 or 4 hours early just because you wanted to come in and dump that. And, the reality of it is, and I hate to say this so bluntly, but it's the truth, the people who do that go to every stream that they do, and they copy and paste the same damn motherfucking message, and I'm sorry.
They do.
Life ain't fucking easy for anybody, and it's really, really, really tough to be on the receiving end of that, as well as, your end of it, right? So it's a really tough situation to navigate, but all in all, when it comes down to it, the stream is supposed to be a safe space, really an escape, right? And no matter what you're going through, it's one of those places where you can kind of set it aside and forget about it, and it's a great distraction from, the shitty reality that we all share, Like, when it comes down to it, everybody has the stuff and has stuff going on, and
sure.
has probably gone through it. Like,
anybody could be carrying anything at any point, and you can't necessarily know it because it's not all visible.
Exactly.
And so,
there's
just
the
be
people
mindful.
who hold it and hide it, and then there's the people who are very vocal about it. And neither one of them are wrong. I want to preface by saying that neither one of them are wrong. Really, what it is that, as a viewer, when you're coming in and doing that, just say, hey, I've had a bad day. We got you. Virtual hugs. We acknowledge that you're having a bad day, and it doesn't bring the vibe down, because it's really hard to give you a distraction and an escape from said problem, when everyone's kind of feeling that, that way. You read that heavy message, and it's just like, okay, great.
Like, let us bring you up instead of you bringing everybody else down.
Exactly.
Is, I think, a great way to say it.
Exactly.
And I think it's important to note that the average Twitch streamer is not a licensed mental health professional. And I say this very specifically because, people sit there and they look to their favorite Twitch streamers because they trust them. And I get that. I do. And I love that there are communities that are built that way. And I love that there are people who trust us enough to ask for advice. But all we can really do is listen. We're not qualified. Even though I worked in a mental health field before this, I'm not a mental health professional. I'm not qualified to give you advice other than, if it's an emergency, here are these resources. If it's not an emergency, here are these resources. That's all I can really do for you. We can be a listening ear, but we can't fix the problem, and we can't be a therapist. We can't be a psychologist. We can't be a medical doctor. Like, I try to preface, I remember there was a point where someone said, oh, I have a headache. What can I try? And I was like, well, first what you should do is talk to your doctor, because I'm not a doctor, but just to, like, because
See,
I feel...
Cover your ass.
Right. I feel like I have to do that.
Kyle told me to do it.
Exactly why. Exactly why. But yeah, I think that it's very important that you guys remember that no Twitch streamer, unless they happen to specify to you that they are a licensed professional and want to provide that, because even if they are and you know that about them, they may not want to be doing that during their off time.
Exactly. I mean, in all fairness, the stream's supposed to be hype, right? Like, I guarantee you right now, you click on any stream that's recommended to you on Twitch, the majority of them are going to be hype. Everyone's having a great time. They're rocking, they're rolling, and then you don't want to ruin that, not only for them but for everyone else that's enjoying it as well. And again, it very well could be an escape. Statistically speaking, it's probably an escape for, I would say, half the audience, if not maybe a little, just a hair less.
Yeah.
Maybe a little bit more. I would say between 40 and 60% is a safe guess. Mm-hmm. Like, I would not bet against that.
No, and I think it varies on, day to day, but sometimes it's even higher.
Exactly. I mean, hell, there's been plenty of times that I've had, a rough day at work, and Kyle, I love you, but I'm going to plug in and I'm going to do my thing, and I'll catch myself, like I'll be playing a game and I'll have a stream pulled up and I'll just stop playing and hang out in the stream because it's a better distraction than my own hobbies, right?
Sure.
And you just never know.
Because there's community around it too, you know? Yeah.
Absolutely, and it's a great escape.
It is, for sure.
Like the movie.
The Great Escape.
Dun, 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 dun. Sorry, that got really heavy. So let's bring it up.
No, we're good. I think it's important that we talk about it. It's something that needs to be said because sometimes it's tough when you have to check people while you're live.
Especially when they dump something like that, you're like, I don't want to check you, but also at the same time, bro, seriously, read the room. And it's a tough thing to try to touch on because you want to be sensitive to the person that it's happening, to, and also sensitive to everybody else, and you don't. As a streamer, you're just under so much constant pressure with situations like that. Like if I were to say, let's say it happens in my stream, right? And I'll be like, hey, I'm sorry that's happening. Let's not talk about that. Let's move on. That could be perceived as like, hey, fuck you. Your shit doesn't, it doesn't matter to me. Right. And I don't want it to come across that way. But we were talked earlier about perception, and you never know who's on the on the other side of the chat box. That's another thing that's really interesting is as you get to know your community, right? You get these mental images of people, and then when you meet them, you're just like,
or hear their voice for the first time,
right?
Or like for me, like I expect that people are from certain parts of the world, the way they communicate, and then like I hear like a British accent, and I'm like, what? Hold on, you're up so late then if you're in my stream.
Right, like, why are you up till 4 in the morning?
Or like,
5 in the morning?
Oh, I pictured you as a person who is from like around this region, and then you're like, whoa, that's not what I pictured at all. Because like we have, a group chat where we have the ability to like join into voice calls together to play games or to do movie nights and things like that.
! Discord.
Yeah. But hearing people's voices for the first time, whoa.
It's so
breaking
surreal.
The fourth wall.
Let alone like some of the people that we've met, you're just like, I would have never guessed.
Yeah.
Would have never guessed.
Yeah. Or you always see people sitting down and then you meet them in person and see how tall or short they really are.
Bro, like me, like I am like very average height. Like I am like the epitome of the average height, right? And there's who was it that we met that was like super tall? Jay Streezy? Dan? Oh my gosh. It's just like, how's the weather up there at this point? Like, are you okay? I can see up your nose, by the way. You know what I mean?
Oh my goodness.
Like, don't sneeze.
Ew.
I don't know. I'm just being funny. But seriously though, you're like, wow, would have never guessed, because they either got the camera up here or whatever, and you see from like here up.
Right, you don't have any idea or any way of knowing, or seeing like people compared to like other people's height.
Yeah.
Like I expect someone's tall, I expect somebody else is tall, but then I see them compared, I'm like, wow, they're about the same height. No way. But yeah, I feel like we kind of like went like.
So I was trying to brighten it up. I know it's always a tough subject, talking about the trauma dumping, and again I want to just reiterate one more time that in no way, shape, or form are we trying to downplay what you're going through or say that it's not important to us, because it is. It very much is, and and I think I speak for both of us when I say if you ever need to reach out, like if you're like if you're like a first time chatter and we don't really know you that well, hang out for a little bit and we get to know you. Yeah. But if you're part of the community, and we know you, if you need us, reach out, message us.
I have lots of resources. I used to do this for a living. I'm happy to help you guys find something. I am not the person to help you.
But that's behind the scenes, right? Like message us on Discord. Yeah. Message us on one of the platforms, or reach out another way. Just don't put it in chat. Because it puts us in a weird spot. It puts us in a weird predicament. Mm-hmm. And it's not fair to anyone, really.
Right.
It's not fair to you because we can't give you the real answer that we want to tell you. Like me, I've had a lot of life experience. I've probably lived, 100 different lives at this point, in my 31 years. God, I'm 31. Ugh.
I'm 30 now, yeah.
Old fart.
You're older than me.
Barely. Age is just a number.
Okay, in August you'll be 2 years older than me for a few months, so... But I think the best way to handle it would maybe be to just say, hey, I'm going through something or I'm having a tough day. Can I send you a message or I'm going to send you a message?
Exactly.
And then it's, cool, I'll read it after stream. And sometimes that's not till the next day if I end at like 2 or 3 in the morning. But just because I have to set boundaries for myself too. But, I will get to your message and I'm happy to, if you can give me a... approximate, doesn't have to be like I live on this street, this is my address. It can be I live in the city of Orlando or I live in the city of Atlanta or something like that, or within an hour of here, and I can say, hey, great, here's this website, type in your zip code, type in your insurance, and like I can help you find a counselor, I can help you find local resources for whatever, because that's what I used to do, is help people find resources. I'm not going to be the one who's going to be your therapist, but I can help you find one. And I'm happy to do that, but the appropriate time to do that is not while I'm live.
Right. Or like me, like I said, I've lived, quite a hell of a life, and I've been through quite a bit. So, if I can relate to it, I'll jump on a call with you and we'll talk it out for a little bit. Again, I'm not a therapist, but sometimes it's good to hear multiple perspectives, right? And things that you could do differently, and ways to handle said situations, and
just have a listening ear who has an idea of what it's kind of like to go through what they're going through. Is helpful too, for sure.
I mean, my way to handle it is very unhealthy. I basically shove everything down into Pandora's box, and one day that you're gonna shake that bottle well enough, and that cap's gonna pop. I don't know what's gonna happen. It's gonna be like Mount Vesuvius.
If you want resources for something other than that, I got you.
I'm only not joking.
But I don't know. I think, is there anything else you wanted to cover in this?
There was
subject?
something else that we had said earlier, and I'm going to be honest with you, I can't remember. I'm going to be honest.
I think that really covers everything we wanted to talk about.
That covers the majority of it.
We kind of went like this, but we...
A little ziggy-zaggy, is that the snobby term?
It is the snobby term, but we hit a lot of the
Pixels,
points.
Damn it, can we have 6 movies on the island?
I feel like you like Pixels more than you like Iron Man. I feel like Guardians of the Galaxy is the one you would leave in out of the two.
I think you might be right. What'd I say? 13 hours. Gotta have that one.
Knight's Tale.
A Knight's Tale. Gotta have that one. I want Pixels for sure.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
What was your 5th one?
The Matrix.
Oh, the Matrix,
I will trade The Matrix for Pixels any day.
There you go.
I don't know what it is about that movie. It just makes me laugh. It's, it's so silly. It's just so, it's...
There you go. It works. So where do we want to go next week? What do we want to talk about?
Next week, I think we need to transition from Twitch to a date night in. Like, who we really are.
Ooh, we should tell history versus herstory of how we met in our first date.
It's Hershey's versus his she's.
What?
You ever seen those?
No.
So when the kids were born,
Yeah.
at the gift shop in the hospital, like where they have all like the baby stuff, like the his and hers, they had Hershey's bars, and like for the her she's, it would have like her highlighted in pink or she highlighted in pink, and then like the he would be blue.
Oh, okay.
So it would be like a his, like
Gotcha.
her. It would be He. Yeah, he would be the
Gotcha.
blue.
His or
I still got him somewhere. I got it.
Yeah.
No, I don't have them anymore. They were in.
Darn.
They got thrown out.
Oh no.
They were in the house up in.
For reference, they're not my biological children, so I didn't just.
She's bonus mom.
I didn't just randomly forget this, but.
she's the fun mom that every kid wants. So, yeah, you can stay up late. Yeah, you can eat chocolate.
Yeah, let's make homemade cookies and hot chocolate and popcorn and fried chicken and
you know
French
what I just realized?
What?
I didn't get to have any of the eggnog that you made for Christmas.
Oh, you didn't?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did you? Do we even still have? It's probably not good anymore.
We do still have some. I will have to look up how long it lasts.
It's eggs and nog. So I'm pretty sure, eggs don't last that long.
Well, if the eggs aren't expired.
I don't know how long nog lasts, but...
Okay. Well,
you combine eggnog together.
We'll smell it and see if it's good, but...
That's what she said.
But yeah, so are you down for history versus herstory?
I think that's the transition we need to go to. Like, you know, I love Twitch, and I know that that's like the main platform, but that's not the brand.
No, there's a lot more that we want to talk about us and why we are what we are.
I want to talk about love languages. I want to talk about, a fun one. You know, how to keep each other happy, and you know.
We could go back to what we never got to finish on Twitch when we tried to start a podcast years ago and talk about intimacy, because everybody got super uncomfortable.
That is very uncomfortable of a situation to talk about.
But it doesn't have to be physical intimacy. There's more forms of intimacy than that.
You know, and that I think that goes along with the love languages. I think we could tie that in together.
Sure.
But really, you know, it's like, you know, all the BS that we've been through our entire relationship. We have been through a hell of a lot. We've been through hell and back, and somehow or another, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling kind of, you know, skeptical about you. What? I'm kidding. Oh, what? Are you okay?
That hurt. You squeezed a little.
I didn't mean to
My legs are sore from cleaning the pantry. I'm sorry.
I stand all day.
I know.
So do you, though. Who am I kidding?
Yeah, I do.
You know, when you start doing like squats, like whether like we use like the hand weights or whatever.
Give me a few days to.
We need to go to the gym.
Let's go for a walk first and do some stretching. Let's start there.
Let's get bikes.
Ooh, bikes are better. We could do bikes.
We can get like Kawasaki Ninja 1000s.
I wasn't talking that kind of bike.
Oh.
You know what's funny? You said you were going to get a motorcycle the other day, and someone was like, yeah, I said no to. And then Mr. So-and-so put a bike in the driveway the next day. And I was like, oh, well, that better not happen.
Oh, I already found one that I'm buying after this paycheck. Okay. You said you wanted your car back, so when it's not raining.
I don't, actually. I'm very happy to be stranded. I'm very happy to be stranded. After years of driving in Orlando traffic, I am very happy to be stranded.
How many comments have you made over the past, I don't know, week and a half, maybe 2 weeks? I'll give you 2 weeks about your car. My car doesn't work. My car's broke down at the moment. It's going to be fixed sometime. When? No idea. That thing is older than I am.
It is actually now.
It is, yeah. Well, it's 33. It's 33, yeah.
It was last year, yeah.
But yeah, you've made a lot of comments about it, so I'm thinking.
Have not.
Yeah, you have.
I made one comment.
Like, yeah, Funky takes my car to work. Yeah, no, I don't. I can't go. I can't do that. I'm sorry. I can't go get it. And I get it. You're using it as an excuse, but also part of me is like,
no, I'm using it as an excuse. There's no ulterior motive. I don't want my car back. I'm so happy to be stranded, for real. For years of driving an hour to my job and an hour and 15 minutes on average home, sometimes an hour and a half to 2 hours plus when there were accidents. I am so happy. What do we do the math? 16 hours a week on average? 16 or 17 hours a week on average?
3 on average per day.
Yeah, so about
3.5. So 3,
16 or 17 hours.
15, 16 hours.
So about 16 average hours a week, and that didn't even include.
My math sucks. I have to use my fingers, sometimes my toes.
But I didn't even like add in time of like driving to the store if I went after work, or like driving,
traffic,
or anything, like doing errands, going to the post office, whatever. But
there was plenty of times she would leave like 5 minutes early and somehow show up 2.5 hours late.
I'd call and be like, hey, there's like a fatal accident on the highway, shut down, I'm not gonna be home till like 7:15. He's like, what? And he'd check my location and be like, oh yeah, no, you're not, like, it's not moving.
Really what it is, she was, off the highway a little bit. She was having an affair.
I was not. Oh my goodness.
You and traffic got along way too well. I'm sorry, that was a really bad joke. She's like, and now we're definitely done. No, I'm kidding. But seriously, though, in all fairness, I think, we really need to get down to the deep roots of this. I mean, the A Date Night In brand, we were just chilling in a hot tub one day, and it's like, we get each other so well. Mm-hmm. We work together very, very well. Sometimes, I mean, of course.
That's a whole other topic that we could talk about, is like, how do you have a romantic relationship and a business relationship with the same person? I think balancing those two can sometimes be difficult, and kind of giving people some tips about the two could be good.
I don't think you want to know my answer.
Okay, well, maybe I'll talk about that a little bit.
My glass is empty, and I'm definitely going to need more. No, I'm
no,
kidding.
I don't mean today. I don't mean today.
I don't mean today either. I'm really just joking.
But I think we could also, because of the things we have been through, we could also tackle in a future episode a little bit about dealing with financial stress, and the impact on your relationship when you have financial stress, because we've been through some tough times, and that's a big thing.
I think tough is is relative. There's obviously there's people that are in worse situations than what we had, but literally there was multiple instances where we had to choose between eating at all.
And electricity.
And then, having the power bill. It's like, hey, we got the bill due and it's past due and it's going to be shut off in a week if we don't pay it now.
Yeah.
Like, can we,
Right, like, what can we eat and can we still feed the cat and, all those sorts of things. And
it's like, hey, I can go make, $30 driving Uber, but do I want to put $20 in the gas tank to toss it up? Maybe I make money, maybe we don't.
What do we have that we can sacrifice? What do we have that we could sell if we don't need it?
Facebook Marketplace was a godsend at one point.
It was.
I'm really upset that we sold. We had to. I had to get rid of the Pokemon collection that I had, the Pokemon cards. Mm-hmm. Bro, I had so many. I probably sold. Rent. I know. I had to sell like 6,000 cards.
We'll get it back one day.
I don't know that I want to spend that kind of money again. You know what I mean? Like, that was a lot. Like, looking back at it, 6,000 cards probably cost...
You don't want to do the math.
I mean, at least $6,000. I mean, when it comes down to it, the stuff that I got rid of already and the duplicates and,
But still,
it was a lot.
We made the sacrifices we needed to be able to survive. And I think that that's a really good topic to talk about because I think a lot of people struggle with, keeping your marriage or your partnership or whatever, sane and alive and healthy while you're struggling with outside stressors is not even just financial, outside stressors. Sorry, I didn't mean to scratch you. Is a better way to explain it. So there's a lot more that's going to be coming. It will not be all social media content.
I think this is where we transition. We got through the topics that we wanted to get to because they were heated topics at the moment, right?
Kind of like, hot topics.
The first one was a pilot, like, hey, get to know us a little bit.
But there's so much more to that story.
There really is.
There's so much.
And
more
that's
going to
be the next, like the meet cute that we had, or the disaster, whichever way you want to look at it. I thought our first date went terrible.
I thought it was great. Here we are, almost 7 years later, so it was fine. Clearly.
I don't know about you, but I'm kind of feeling that we do a quick pause. Grab another drink, and we just continue on. Maybe split this into a part 2.
Yeah, we could do that. Works for me.
I don't know. What do you guys think? Leave us a comment below.